Ever Blue is the TF2 feature-length film made by Fortress Films, focusing on delivering a great horror experience through immersive shots, weird imagery, detailed sound effects, and a scary, sad, and somewhat of a complicated storyline. It's an incredible work of art, and it quickly became the best example of Team Fortress 2 horror. But is it the first? No. Our adventure starts in the great year of 28, 1 year after TF2's release. By this time, the fans of this game have already learned how to make a decent looking machinima within Gmod, and some of them weren't normal. Nah, just kidding. But some TF2 fans were also really into horror and wanted to try to see if they can get anything scary out of this game. But how they transform this funny FPS into horror material, while only using Gary's mod? Well, the easiest solution people found is to take the mercenaries models and turn them into freaks. TF2 Freaks are a category of Team Fortress 2 OCs that take the original player models and turns them into big scary monsters, or zombies, or cyborgs, or anything that isn't a typical human. With some of the results looking kinda goofy, now if you ask me, kinda silly. Looking kinda silly. Yeah, you can smell the creepypasta vibes from these from miles away. But I think that is what it gives them their unique charm and maybe a nostalgic feeling for some. The first ever appearance of the TF2 Freaks happens between December 31, 2008 and January 9, 2010, when these two videos were uploaded, with Engineer having a good time being the first. This one is particularly important because it will later define how most of the other freaks will be designed and thought out. Fun fact, TF2 Freaks were so popular that a new type of TF2 community servers were made for them named Freak Fortress. From gameplay I've seen on YouTube, it seems that these servers were running a versus Saxon Hell mod, where the Saxon Hell model was replaced with a TF2 Freak model. There are a ton of TF2 Freaks, and I do recommend reading about them yourself, but I'm still going to name some of my favorites. Vegineer and Painless Cupcake. Yeah, I'm putting these two together because they were the first ever freaks, and that they also started some important traits that the other freaks will have, like Painless Cupcake, starting the whole taking a body part name, then adding a surname related to food naming scheme. These names would also have some connection with the in-game voice lines. And Vegineer started the trend of giving freaks different variations. Christian Brutal Sniper, basically your average machete enjoyer. Their first appearance is in Christian Brutal Sniper. However, this upload, alongside all of the other original uploads by the creator, are unavailable. The only public media of this fella is fan-made videos made by the community. And Team Killer, which is probably the most popular TF2 freak, as it's also the most creative and unique. He's so popular that it got somewhat of a reboot in 2016, where it got a new design and his name was changed to Team Slayer. Yeah, this is pretty much all I got on TF2 freaks. They are kinda irrelevant now, nobody's making anything about them anymore, except Saris, which they started a new series this year about the Vegineer called the Vegineer Invasion. There are only 2 episodes out. These are a bit old, 4 or 5 months old, so I'm not sure if we're going to see more. Kinda interesting how this whole thing started with the Vegineer and ended with them. Though I do wanna see someone try to make a new TF2 freak.
Now, this section should be its own separate video, because it's not just about TF2. However, it would be a shame if I didn't say anything about Gmod ARGs. I'm just going to focus on 2 series, otherwise this section will be way too long. But first, just a quick explanation. Gmod ARGs are series that take the normal concept of Gmod and twist it to make something scary but have you figure out why things go wrong. Usually through puzzles. Usually. The 2 series I want to focus on are Gunslinger Pro 2009 and The Interloper. I know this one isn't really TF2 focused and also not that much Gmod focused, but it's probably the most unique one out there and I want to talk about it. So Gunslinger Pro. In this one, the TF2 ragdolls are alive. Oh yeah, before diving this whole thing yourself, just know that this is a very common trait amongst almost all Gmod ARGs, so, be prepared. Anyway, and the player likes to torture them. Turning them into ugly monsters, breaking every bone in their body, yeah, the usual. There aren't many videos on the channel, but with the help of Richer over time, the series and the whole concept has gotten more popular, making more people make their own series and adding their own little twist. And the Interloper. Basically, the dude from this prey is able to move and go across all Source Engine games, from Counter-Strike to TF2 to Half-Life and so on. And you need to find more about him by using a series of console commands to watch some weird demo files that feel unnatural. Sometimes these commands work, and sometimes they don't. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about it, and I do recommend watching this video to know all there is to know, but first you need to watch the whole series yourself. So on one end of the line, you got the TF2 Freaks, a niche side that have a clear distinction from all of the other stuff. And on the other end, you got the ARGs, again something that isn't really that niche, but still unique. So if these two are the endpoints, then what is in the middle? Well, here are the creators that still make scary stuff, but don't tackle any of those two. Duh. And definitely the most important one to talk about is Tipsy Duck. Many will consider this guy to be the TF2 horror guy back in the day. His animations have stuck with people mostly because of their weirdness and probably the dated look. Like, you can tell these are old. He was still somewhat of a small artist in the community, but you've most definitely seen his work, like a funny or Manco employee training video. Not all of his videos were scary, but they were definitely weird. And I do recommend checking out his work. It's pretty interesting. Other people on my list will be Krasness B and Priest Punky. Priest Punky is particularly important because they made the Who We Dante series. And Krasness B, which they fall in the same boat as Tipsy in terms of content. However, they are still kinda different from each other. One great animation that comes to mind is Prologue, which is a full-on quality horror video. Anybody else that comes to mind will be KR for their Ghost of the Past series. It's actually kinda phenomenal. Silver Mace for their hide and seek animation. Krieg Kills Reality, which they make mostly TF2 anomalies animations. Krieg also helped making these type of animations more popular. And Lawrence for the Till Death Do Us Part animation, which is a very cool and cinematic animation. Obviously, these are not the only TF2 horror creators. There are a bunch more, but I will say that these are probably the best ones. If you do know any other TF2 horror creators or animators, shout them out in the comments. So I did talk about these fellas in my other video. However, since this one is about Team Fortress 2 and horror, there's no way I can't mention them again. But there are some stuff that I missed about them in the previous one, like how Spice Disguise wasn't their first upload. Sorry for lying to you. They actually have about 12 unlisted videos ranging from trailers to workshop concept and full-on TF2 movies, including a medic musical and a sexy 2007 comedy finalist animation. So yeah, this is another thing that I didn't mention in my other video, is that every Fortress film upload is connected in a way to reveal pieces of the lore, from Spicy Skies revealing the concept of respawn machines, MS's diazepam, introducing us to the medicine with the same name that makes the mercenaries have hallucinations and weird dreams, and the main slice of the cake, MS's Blue, which reveals the most, like the respawn machine malfunctioning, making those who enter never be the same way, the mercenaries actually being clones, showing that the machines don't bring you back to life, instead they clone you, Scout being a fucking idiot, and the soldier is actually the sanest of them all. As many answers MSS Blue give us, it also raises more and more and more questions, which hopefully they might be answered in their next upcoming movie, Murdering. Their impact that they had was quite large, as they have become the thing that most, if not everyone, thinks of when they hear TF2 horror. Which, while I do think they totally deserve that recognition, I still think it's a shame that the old stuff made by the community doesn't get the same treatment anymore. And while you might say that it's just a product of time, it's also because, as surprisingly extensive the TF2 horror scene was, it was still relatively underground. Like, I would say that not even half of the community knew what TF2 freaks were, even in their prime. But not to say their impact wasn't a positive one, they definitely sparked some curiosity in people's mind about TF2 horror, which made them research about this topic.
And when you thought it couldn't get any better, it does. Capture the Intelligence is a TF2 fan game made by Nixlis. The premise of this game is that you are a blue spy loading in a CTF game. However, something is wrong about this server. You can't leave it, and the map wasn't any ordinary TF2 map. It was dark and grainy, and while the server was empty, something is definitely out there, lurking. So you decide to try to cap the intel, hoping that when the round ends, you'll be able to leave the server. But this is where you meet your first enemy of the game. The Heavy, running around, quite fast, with his fist up, screaming at you in a distorted voice. You can't do much against him. You just have to run and hope that he doesn't catch you. After managing to cap the intel 3 times, the game doesn't end, but the door that was at your spawn point opens. Going through it reveals that you have been inside the construction building this whole time. It's nighttime, and you quickly find out that there's a new threat to survive from. Your new enemy is the soldier, and now you're tasked with leaving GM construct by fueling up the scout car from Half-Life by finding gas cans. This time you can defend from the soldier by pressing E. You'll be calling for a medic, which will stun soldier for a few seconds, giving you time to run away. You leave after fueling up the car and crash in a highway. You see an exit door far away, but you have to go through a horde of snipers and an enemy pyro. You make your way through, you exit the highway, but now you find yourself in a wheat field. You now have to find 5 keycards to open the doors to the new exit, while trying not to make contact with the medic, scout, and demo man. You manage to go through all the exit doors, and now you find yourself in the last level. It's only you and the red engineer in a server room. You find that all of the things you've seen are the engineer's doings. The only way to stop everything and finally leave is to break the servers. You wake up. It was all a dream. You go downstairs and find that your friends have come to celebrate your birthday. However, the engineer isn't here. Was it really just a dream? This was a quick explanation of the gameplay and lore of Capture the Intelligence. I don't really want to say much because I truly want for you to experience this game on your own first. if you haven't already. While it is short and pretty simple, it's pretty striking and unique for being a TF2 fan game. It doesn't outright tell you much about the story. That is something you have to figure out by making theories and see which one is the most plausible. Which I think is a pretty good way to do storytelling. The game has recently got a new update, the Tower update, adding in new levels with randomly generated rooms, new monsters, and more lore. Again, not going to say anything about it. I want you to experience it blindly. After you have played the game and want to know more about what the fuck happened, I'll recommend watching this video by Oris TV. He goes much more in depth than what I can do in just one chapter, plus he interviewed Nixless.
So yeah, this is pretty much all I've got to talk about. Keep in mind this isn't really supposed to be a full-on documentary, and more like an introduction to the whole TF2 horror scene. You know, like giving you a head start before jumping in yourself. For example, I have not talked about TF2O, which is kind of a weird topic to talk about. Mostly because people have very mixed feelings about the series. Some say it's cringe AF, some say it's good, and others say that only the fun-made stuff about the series is cringe. But thankfully, for me, I don't need to do any research about it, because Shork already made a video about TF2O. So you know, if you want to know more about it, then watch this video. Anyways, thanks for watching. This video was actually supposed to release on Halloween, but because I'm lazy, I could have never meet that deadline. So it is what it is, you know. Yeah.